Hello everyone! Today was the main story chapter 8 update with Logi and Yuna in the Legend Fest, and there are a few important things that came with this update that you probably want to know about. The main thing that we got with chapter 8 is the maximum level has been increased once again up to 80, and if that feels fast, it kind of is. We haven't been 70 for very long, and now we are already 80. That's pretty crazy. Once you finish chapter 8 of the main story, you will unlock grow boards up to 14 and be able to level characters to 80. To get from 70 to 80 for an entire party of 5 characters, so you can get the training research, it'll be about 70 million XP and 7 million coal, plus all of the orbs that requires. It does require some new orbs, and these orbs do not come from the training quest. The tier 4 of the glowing orbs come from material quests, so they will come from the chapter 8 score battles. Specifically, they do come from both difficulties, hard and very hard, but each clear of hard gives 1 orb, and each clear of very hard with SS gives 8 orbs, I believe, so it's much more efficient if you can get that SS. And I will do my best to get out a guide for those score battles sometime this week, because it is important to have SS ranks on those, so please be patient for that, although I have a lot of videos to make this week and not too much time. We'll see when I get it done. I will hope to get it out sometime this week, though. It is pretty important. We also have some new bundles in the shop with chapter 8 over here. The Paragon Night bundles. The Night Pack is not worth it at all. It's not that much XP for 300 gems, it's pretty bad, and this one's even worse. It's the same price for even less. I believe this one down here that you unlock for clearing chapter 8 does have some of the new orbs in it, so it can get you a jump start on those level 14 grow boards if you are having a hard time with the score battles. So it's up to you whether or not you want to spend the gems for this one. If it does in fact have those tier 4 orbs in it, I'm pretty sure it did, but I can't remember right now. And obviously I can't look at it. But yeah, if it does, it's definitely not worth it if you can clear the score battles, but it can help. Level 80 is going to be really important, especially for clearing things like Affinity Tower and stuff. It's the stats you get from it are just really, really, really powerful. It'll make a big difference for your teams defensively and offensively. So let's just go ahead and get into the units. So we have Logi, this is the second Logi, and Yuna. Yuna's a new character from the main story. She is a stab attacker. She's actually the first stab unit we've gotten since the release of the game, which is pretty funny. And Logi is a bolt breaker, so let's just go ahead and look at those. The memoria is actually kind of a generic Fizz attacker memoria. When the target is stunned, boosts single target attack skill damage by 69% at max rank, and this is actually higher than most memoria. It's still not worth unlocking with memory crystals or pulling for in general, but it is a solid memoria to have if you do get a decent amount of copies of it just incidentally somehow. It's one of the better like Fizz attacker memoria in the game, so that's kind of cool. Also has super cute art with Yuna making a snowman. I do enjoy it. So first we'll go through Yuna. It's still pretty funny to me that it took them this long to add a new stab character to the game, but we will end up getting way more stab characters like very quickly after Yuna. Like the next banner is a stab breaker, and then there's even more. But yeah, Yuna overall, she's pretty mediocre as an attacker. She has a gimmick based around executing enemies at low HP. So you can see here on her skill 2, when target's HP is below 50%, boosts damage by 50%. This isn't terrible on a skill 2, but it's not amazing either. When you need extra damage is really when the enemies are full and not when they're low, so the gimmick's kind of weird. She does give herself a permanent skill damage boost that does stack up to 60% before attacking, so that's okay, but the damage rate is a fairly mediocre 326. It's obviously really, really hard hitting for a skill 2 if you do meet this condition, but this condition is kind of counterintuitive. Like, you don't need this damage when the condition's active most of the time, right? So The burst is just more of the same. When target's HP is below 50%, boost damage by 100%, and this burst does an absolutely crazy amount of damage when this condition is met, but otherwise it is just a normal burst. It does have a gimmick on it, a special effect, where before attacking, it removes received damage down statuses from the target, which is pretty useless. Believe it or not, it's pretty useless. When they do release level 40 of the Elemental Tower, they do like, I think it was floor 38 or something, has enemies with very high stacks of received damage down buffs. So it's kind of made for Yuna, but it's easily clearable without her anyways. And this status effect isn't really so common enough for getting rid of it to be like a relevant boon to the character. It's just like, yeah, they like, you will see some enemies with this in chapter 8 because of the banner unit, because of this effect, but it's really just, it hasn't been relevant in the game like at all. So then her skill 1, she gives herself a speed boost. 10% speed isn't really hugely important, and it kind of messes up your speed tuning after a few turns. I don't really like this as a skill 1. Then she does get a skill damage boost when the target is stunned, which is pretty cool. 40% is quite a bit from the passive. And she also gets ramping physical attack when defeating enemies, which also isn't bad. But overall, she is just a very mediocre physical attacker. There's not really much to say about it. Her kit just doesn't really make much sense. The damage boost triggers when you don't really need it anymore, so it's kind of like, yeah. She also doesn't come with a particularly good synthesis gift, making her pretty much a skip for the banner. But ylogy is a much better character by comparison. Ylogy is a bolt breaker, and he's quite a solid breaker indeed, especially paired with Izana. Ylogy is absolutely fantastic when paired up with Izana because he is the support that Izana really needs. For now, a lot of people, I'm sure, have been using Bolt Resna or making do with like soups to enable her crits, but ylogy, when he stuns an enemy, he gives the ally with the highest magic attack a guaranteed crit on their next turn. And this is pretty consistent to pull off. And giving Izana those guaranteed crits really helps. You know, it really helps her deliver that huge amount of damage from the crit damage she gets from her passive and whatever. She's very crit reliant, but her skill 2 doesn't have inherent crit rate, so ylogy is really good at supporting that, while also being a really solid magic breaker in his own right. He has good single target stun potential with a solid stun rate here, and increased stun damage when the target stun gauge is higher than 50%. So unlike Yuna, he gets his boost when the stun gauge is full, not when it's not full. So pretty good there. That 30% is very solid. And he also just gets another passive 15%. So he has a lot of stun damage in his passives by default, and just this crit rate boost is super good for Izana. It's also really good for any other magic attacker or attacker in general that you have, but Izana is like the shining example for him. Like, pairing him with Izana, you will absolutely feel the power there. His skill 1 is just a stun damage steroid for himself for 2 turns, so it's definitely not bad if you need it to just squeeze a little bit more stun damage out of the skill 2. And his burst is actually an area stun, so pretty solid area stun here. It will increase the damage, the magic damage that the targets receive for 1 attack, and then it will also do the same thing as his skill 2. When it stuns something, it will give your highest magic attacking ally a guaranteed crit on their next turn. So very solid character here. Mostly solid with Izana because she has all of that crit damage boost, but also in the future, when we get the crit damage trait, his value will also go up a ton then, because crits will be worth a lot more damage than they currently are. Right now, the base critical damage bonus is 50%, so crits are still very good, of course, but in the future, we'll be stacking that up to like 250, 300%, 200 to 250%. So crits will be doing like triple damage, and they'll start being a really important part of the game, more important than they already are. So yeah, Logi's a very solid breaker in that regard. Also, his gifts, he is the first character with a stun damage boost gift that does link to other characters you already have. So he does link to Leela and Shalistera both. So we can finally, you know, have better chances at making magic stun gear. So on top of being a really solid breaker, he has a really good synthesis gift. Ylogy is just really good all around. Of course, there are a lot of characters that have their own inherent crit rate, which lowers his value a bit if those are your main attackers. Like if you're using New Year's Mari, you don't really need Ylogy, right? If you're planning on using Roseval in the future, you don't really need Ylogy. If you're using Christmas Resna, you don't really need Ylogy, right? So it does lower his value a bit, but with attackers like Izana, his value is really high. So it just depends on your main team, but he is quite good. Now, as far as like, would I spend gems on this banner or tickets? And the answer is kind of no. I've mentioned this before, but in the future, on June 10th, we have a date, they gave it to us, they will be updating the permanent pool of units. So we won't just have the banner units and the release units anymore, we will have all the limited units up to 2 months prior the banner date. So once that update happens on June 10th, you will be able to pull Sophie, Master Ryza, Izana, Resna, Christmas Resna from any of your, banner pulls. And because of that, I don't really recommend spending too many gems right now, regardless of how good the characters are. It's better to just wait until you can get very good characters from any just random pull, in my opinion. And also this banner is kind of lackluster because Yuna is just not really good. Ylogy is quite good. If you really want him, don't let me stop you, absolutely go for him. But being split between, one not very good unit and one good unit still kind of hurts for rate ups, so it's better to spend on banners where both of the units are quite good and useful, right? Such as the upcoming Rose banner or maybe Toturi, so yep. I believe that will be about it for this one. I wish you all luck with your pulls. I will not be doing pulls in this video because I'm not buying the tickets, but if you choose to go after Ylogy, I wish you luck in getting him, and I hope everyone's pulls are successful. Anyways, I will see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.